Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to Tomorrow's Tech Today, bringing you the latest in technology talent, transformational change, and of course, tech as a force for good. I'm your host, Professor Sally Eaves, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Rajat Bhargava, CEO of JumpCloud. It's a fascinating fireside here, right into Raj's journey into founding JumpCloud, looking at identity management as the new, really frontier of digital transformation, and also exploring other aspects too, for example, around ESG, skills development, and the startup journey. Really is packed full of tangible takeaways here. So without further ado, a very warm welcome. Raj, fantastic to be with you today. As we set up in the intro to our session, so much to talk about. But first, let's start with you, kind of person behind the tech, if I may. Raj, tell us more about yourself.
Sure. Well, it's great to be here. Nice to meet you. Thanks for taking time. Really Pleasure. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, look, I grew up in Michigan. I went to school in Boston, studied electrical engineering, and then I found a passion and love for startups. And
Love it.
So I've done 10 startups since then. So we've had some exit really well, and then just learned a tremendous amount. And, you know, it's the fun of creating and building. That's what I love.
I love it as well. You've reminded me, I was involved in the BSEAM program in the Midlands in the UK as a kind of startup mentor and sponsor. And I love that too. So I think we should definitely get back to that. I know you've written about this subject extensively as well, and it's a shared passion. So definitely more on that.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Brilliant. So from those beginnings, and particularly your passion from startups, tell us about founding JumpCloud.
Sure. So I think JumpCloud is sort of a culmination of my journey as an entrepreneur. And I've been very fascinated with trying to build internet infrastructure. And obviously identity, devices, security is an incredibly important part. And, you know, I saw this opportunity about 8, 9, 10 years ago where I felt that we were going to take these on-prem identity systems and we were going to shift them to the cloud. And that's the opportunity I saw. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity there for us.
Definitely. And it's very, very noticeable. You know, in conversations I have, whether it's with startups or enterprise level, cloud digital transformation has been a focus for a long period of time, massive acceleration with COVID, etc. too. But now, new frontier. You mentioned it, identity transformation. I think that is the new frontier of difference. Can we unpack that a little bit more about why this matters so much, and particularly from the device level up?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think 10, 15 years ago, identity was not as important, or at least thought of as important as it is today. And look, we started cloud transformation. It's been a while now, right? 10, 15, 20 years, right? And so that process has been underway. But what we've also found is that underpinning that cloud transformation is going to be identity transformation. So connecting people to the technology that they need, whether that's cloud infrastructure, whether that's web applications, whether that's their mobile devices anywhere, all of that is super important. And that's really what we think of as identity transformation, taking an identity which lived on-prem, controlled on-prem, shifting it to being independent from the cloud, highly secure.
Couldn't agree more. I think so much more awareness about this as well, from consumer level, ecosystem partners, etc., showing due diligence that you're doing this right. I think, again, has never mattered more. So in terms of organizations you're working with and who's coming with you, even asking for support, for example, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges in doing identity right? What are the biggest areas? I mean, certainly personally, complexity comes up quite a lot for me, but also areas, for example, about lack of integration, lack of visibility, knowing exactly what you've got, but also duplication, things like tool sprawl, cloud sprawl, that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's step back for just a second, right? So what is the most important thing that an IT organization does for their company, their organization? I think it's they connect them to technology, right? So how do you connect people these days to technology? In the old days, you know, you handed somebody a machine and everything was on there. There wasn't this network, but today everything's in the cloud, right? And everything has an access control system, if you will. So their identity is deeply involved. So when I think about that question, it's really going back to the basics of saying, you know, what is IT there to do? It's to make people productive with technology, right? And that's what we're trying to enable and accomplish. And then, of course, that has all kinds of downstream implications with, you know, integrations, as you talked about, you know, trying to simplify it, not making it as complex, highly secure. All of those things come into play.
Absolutely. And friction-free, I think, as well, is the other element, isn't it? It's similar, the conversations we have around security in areas like that. We want to do these things right. We want to bring in the right controls and safeguards, but it needs to be in a friction-free experience as well. It can't be too difficult because people then move away from it, don't they?
We call it secure, frictionless access.
Perfect,
Ultimately, that's the outcome, what I think of an IT organization is trying to accomplish. They want their people to be productive,
Definitely.
right? And people want to be productive. They want to be able to get everything done. So how do you make that experience frictionless, but then how do you make it secure too,
Indeed,
right? And
indeed.
that's the challenge that people have today.
Absolutely. And I think also with the COVID experience, expectations have changed, and that's leading to behavior change as well, and including at employee level. Because again, you're used to kind of friction free in your pocket, what you can do with your phone, what you can do with work from anywhere, etc. Even just in the entertainment sphere and education and what you can do. People expect that kind of same access tools, seamlessness in their work roles as well, and it gives them that agency. And some research I was involved with was saying people are walking away, from organisations. It's actually a churn situation if they don't feel that they're supported from the tools, and it's actually adding burden rather than taking it away. It's a big issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why would you go work somewhere where
Exactly.
they make it hard
Definitely.
for you to do your job, right? So
Precisely.
Look, I think, when we think about the impact that an IT organization is having these days, I think absolutely they're a part of the revenue generating function. Indeed. They're a part of teams being better, more successful, and they're absolutely involved in security. Right. Perfect. That's pretty powerful. I mean, when we used to, when I started in the industry, it was much more IT was a cost center.
Yes.
It's not a cost center anymore. It is an enabler to an organization being successful.
Definitely. And shared value, I think, is the word that we're looking at
Sure.
here as well. And I totally agree. The alignment between IT and business, the need for that has never been stronger, but I think we're making real avenues forward in terms of doing that now, rather than the silo sort of situation we've had in the past. And even the language that we're talking about technology about has changed. And I think, again, the broadened awareness of the role of technology and how much you can influence daily life has really helped that. Because I think literacy around these areas for everyone, it's affected our family lives massively, hasn't it? So
we look at even our personal lives, right?
Exactly.
iPhone's not that old,
Yeah,
right? Like
indeed.
we think about it, 15, 20 years ago,
very
what
true.
our lives are like in these days. And it's amazing how much we can get done on our phones. And that's true in our work lives too. We can do so much. We can do it from the beach. We can do it from, being at home. We can do it from the office. We can do it on the road, from a plane. We can be productive really anywhere. And can you be productive and secure? That's really powerful, right?
Yes.
And that's where a great IT organization is going to figure that out for their team.
Definitely.
And that team is then going to be way more productive and successful.
Exactly. It's about that facilitation, empowerment, enablement that you were talking about, making it easier to do the right things in your role and things like that, rather than these barriers that are in the way. So I think that's absolutely important. And what you said there about how this is supportive flexibility, I think we both do a lot of work around inclusion and kind of breaking down those barriers to access with so many art of the possible. So if we can do that, but with that right experience, that frictionless and security by design, I think it's that baked in aspect that's so important. It's not about retrofitting things. It's taking away these barriers and making sure we're building it from conceptualization, I think, which is absolutely key. And on that note, I don't know how much you can say about this. It's kind of like sneak peek territory, really. But in terms of your kind of platform roadmap, and I know you're making some announcements coming up, but are you able to give a sneak peek about some advances you're making with JumpCloud again, drilling into these challenges and opportunities for customers and how you're supporting them? I'd love to kind of drill into that if we can.
Absolutely.
I don't know how far we can go.
Of course. Well, I think, if we talk about themes, right? Like the themes that we have are absolutely, we call it to make work happen for organizations, right? So how can we provide secure, frictionless access to that organization? So the areas that we're very interested in are absolutely with identity and connecting that seamlessly all across whatever an ecosystem looks like in an organization. So we have spent a lot of time making those integrations so that there's tremendous automation, so that when an organization has a new person on board, there's really no work for them to do. And it automatically gives them access to everything that they need. That's a huge innovation. When you think about in the past where it would take so long to onboard an employee or offboard a person, right? So that's a pretty big advancement, we think, where it's just automated, right? And so another piece is, I'd say, to give you two sneak peeks.
Yeah, go for it.
That's one of them. And then the second one is probably the depth of device management. So we think of devices as your gateway to accessing everything. Everybody's going to access through they're going to access something through a device, right? Whether that's your mobile phone, whether that's your laptop, desktop at home, people still have those. So how can we make that safe and secure, easy, frictionless? So we're innovating a lot there.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point, because we talk about like endpoints not being yours anymore, that type of thing in terms of cybersecurity. But as we're becoming more and more decentralized in terms of our working, our learning, our hybrid models of work and life, really, in many different ways, we're building more and more of those devices into the pipeline, aren't we? If you see what I mean. And often it's that weakest link. I've seen so many things where it's been like a printer, for example, if it's at home or even in the office, that's the one route in. So whether we're talking about identity or more from security and privacy point of view as well, this kind of ripple effect of different devices being linked together, if that integration isn't right, they'll find that weakest link. And particularly with more bad actor collaboration and things like IT and OT convergence as well, everything is coming together. So getting the integration right, my God, it's the foundation, isn't
absolutely.
It really is.
We work across all kinds of different devices, all kinds of different systems. How are those integrated to make sure that that experience is frictionless, but it's also secure, right? That's absolutely critical.
I love that. And on that subject as well, so I get involved in quite a few research studies and kind of looking at how expectations have changed, how that's impacted behaviours, but also the kind of the challenge opportunity, kind of that juxtaposition between the two. And I really love to hear a bit more about the recent research you've been involved in. I think particularly look at the SME market. Again, so important at the moment. I think the focus there is really critical. But are you able to give any kind of early insights from that in terms of what's kind of like the gold, silver, or bronze, should we say, in terms of what's keeping CIOs up at night in terms of this particular area? And then we can pivot to that about how you're addressing those particular challenges, if we're able to, because I know these early days in the field research. I know what that's like.
We actually have done a lot of research over the years.
Yes, of course.
Into the SME space, small to medium enterprise space. We think of that sort of, let's say 5,000 to 10,000 employees and less. And those organizations, what we're hearing from them right now is absolutely IT consolidation really matters. There's too many systems, right? And there's too much, let's call it IT sprawl.
Yes,
so
indeed.
That's hard to manage. It's hard to secure. It's hard for their employees to understand what systems they use for what type of activities.
Indeed.
So the more that we can make it easier, consolidate, it's going to make an impact on productivity. It's going to make an impact on security. It's going to make an impact on people's ability to get things done.
Definitely. No, I totally agree with that. And also on things like well-being and, reducing burnout in IT op teams as well. Again, I see that as one of the biggest reasons for, proximity to churn and move away from a company, but also missing things. Because again, if you've got that burnout and you've got so much noise, for example, and you've got duplication, you can miss that nugget of information that would have made all the difference and would have preempted and been proactive to an issue rather than trying to do things retrospectively. So I think it also supports on that human potential as well and enables you to do your best, doesn't it? It's that complementary strengths coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to be in IT.
Absolutely.
It's not easy to do what they do. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. First of all, they're onboarding and offboarding a tremendous number of people, right? We're worried about security. And you're worried about those people being successful, right? You're sort of the catalyst for them to be successful. Yeah. That's a lot of pressure.
It certainly is.
By the way, there's not that many IT folks in the world. There's a lot more that are needed.
Definitely.
So if you can help people through a consolidated platform, consolidated set of tools, make it easier, they're more integrated, it's more effective, that makes a big difference on how the well-being, as you said, of an IT organization.
It's that enablement layer to give you that facilitation to do your best, isn't it? It really is. And you're absolutely right. I think if you combine IT with, say, middle management level, it's kind of like knowledge broker in many ways. There's so much agency to make a difference. And kind of that onboarding role between kind of C-suite level or VPs and directors, etc., but also onboarding new talent in. You're kind of moving with everybody, aren't you? You're right at the hub of the wheel of so much impact, but sometimes can be the most squeezed. So support for that level, I think, in particular, is very, very needed. And it kind of brings me on to another kind of passion area, actually, again, which is skills and education. Yep. What are you seeing of the implications of all we've talked about so far in terms of identity, but also just the evolving change of the market at the moment? There's big skills changes. I think a lot of people are kind of thinking, well, what should I be investing skills in and how should I support my team better? Yeah. From any of those perspectives, as a leader like yourself or reaching out to people maybe looking at this sector as a space to work in, and what would your advice be there? What are you seeing as the biggest skill change and maybe the skill opportunity?
Yeah, well, first of all, the IT space is a massive opportunity.
So true.
Any individual looking to say, what career do I want?
Exactly.
Absolutely, the IT area is one that is so dynamic, changing. There's a lot to learn there and grow.
Definitely.
So, and I think I'll pick maybe one or two really interesting ones, right? Obviously, security, hugely important. Not getting any easier anytime soon. It's more complex, more more dynamic than it's
Indeed.
ever been. So if you're looking at a field, where do you want to grow? Where do you want to learn? And you're an IT professional,
Yes.
I'd absolutely say
Perfect.
go deep
Perfect.
on security, right? That is
Yes,
important.
absolutely.
I'd say another place to go deep is, like you said, identity and devices and zero trust.
Yes.
This whole concept of how networks are going to get built, how people are going to interact.
Absolutely.
You know, we've said this a lot. We think the atomic unit
Yep.
inside of an IT organization is that access to something.
Indeed.
Right? That is the sort of the basic function. Yes. And if you can really study that, understand how do I make that safe, easy, secure,
Exactly.
all of those things, that's not an easy thing to do when you think about all the different types of technology, all the different types of platforms, all the different locations
Absolutely.
that we're coming from, all the different protocols, and like that's a pretty big
It's
opportunity. That's a great
absolutely.
area for somebody who's really passionate about learning and growing, building their career.
Exactly.
I'd say go spend a lot of time there. There's no shortage of opportunity there.
Exactly. I love that. I think the dynamism is a great point.
Absolutely.
And also, I've got a phrase in my head: "Rise of the generalist." In terms of kind of my sort of skills advice on that subject is have that specialism area, whether that is AI or data science, whatever area it might be. But have that breadth and depth of different skills as well. I love art, like this beautiful artwork behind us. I've got to call that out for a second. But I love that. And I like to imagine like a canvas with all these different skills on there. And if the one thing that's constant is change, but the speed, the scope, the sophistication of change is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, how do you help people get more skills confident? So for me, it's not just about kind of broadening outreach to skills opportunities. And we've seen great improvements there about, costs coming down and more collaboration in this space as well, but also giving people the confidence to actually apply those skills as well. I think that might be another kind of missing link, if you see what I mean. Things like metacognition, so helping you to learn what skills kind of approach works best for you, what your learning style is, and help to apply that. So kind of personalized training in organizations, I think, can really support that and take you to the next level.
And I think one of the things that sort of underrated is a person's desire to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
Right? So
curiosity too.
Absolutely. Like I think if that's one of the most important things somebody can do is just sort of build that muscle inside of them that they want to learn, they want to grow, then all the specifics will happen, right? Like, so, obviously AI is the sort of hot topic du jour, right? So, that is a great opportunity for people to learn, a great opportunity for people to grow, to find new ways of doing things. I don't think it's a threat in a lot of ways. I think it's an opportunity, at least in IT.
Exactly.
There's so much complexity, so many issues. Why not use it to your advantage?
Exactly.
Right. So I think anybody who's sort of inclined and passionate to learn and grow, they're going to be massively successful.
Exactly. And all these teams need so many different skills as well. Things I always keep saying when we're mentoring and things, it's not just about coding. And in fact, look, with the rise of low code and no code, actually, you can have more specialist coding. So some roles there, will be evolving anyway, but you need that depth and breadth. And don't be afraid to think you've got a skill that won't be useful, because my goodness, you will. And how many people come into tech from non-linear paths? I always say that as well. It's really, really interesting. And those experiences can be just the missing link that team was needing. So I think that's really, really important. And we mentioned there about two things: hot topics, but also potential gaps and insights. And it's triggered something else in my head. So another thing, again, I do a lot of work in this area, and I know you're really passionate about it too. Another area of the SDG is more around sustainability. So the ESG area in particular, a very big hot topic, but B, one where, again, tech and data can make such a difference. So moving beyond just being transparent around aspirations in this area, but really drilling into that data, being accountable and using that to make, active decision making and make a change, particularly in the cloud space. So what are you seeing there from your customers in terms of doing more around ESG impact? Because I've seen some of your community work. I love it. And I just would love to hear what you're hearing in that space and how you're reacting to that.
And look, COVID's been an interesting opportunity for people thinking about ESG, right? Definitely. So, there's obviously this huge thing going on these days around, hybrid work.
Indeed.
Go back to the office. And so one of the things that we've been super passionate about is give people an option, right? If we can take people off the roads, saving time, saving money, saving a lot of pollution, that's really important. So being able to find ways to enable people to work from wherever they want to work, using the tools that they think are the best tools for them, that's a big piece of, I think, one of the things we can enable in a very small way for the community.
Fantastic. but they all fit together, don't they? It's all these little steps across that path, if you see what I mean. So that really does make a contribute to that outcome. So I love that. And I was thinking about your spend ebook as well, the resource that you put together as well. I wonder if we could drill into that, because again, looking at that can help you like improve measurement, which I think is really important, not just for ESG, but just generally. And looking at what's happening at the world at the moment, kind of the need, the kind of the clarion call, if you like, to do more with what you have or do more with less.
Yeah.
And I think ESG is a great example of an opportunity there, because again, optimize your consumption. You get a shared value impact of that for society,
Absolutely.
but also for the bottom line as well. So I'd love if we could drill in some insights from that ebook too, because I know it touches on areas like waste and sustainability, but other areas about cost too.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's really important for us is we think of the IT tool consolidation.
Yes,
you have so many different tools,
indeed.
so many different things that you're using. If you can consolidate those down, you're going to save a tremendous amount of money. It's going to be easier for people to learn, easier for people to manage. It's going to be safer. You know, that whole process makes a big difference. I think ultimately these days people are concerned about the costs that they're expending to be able to generate the revenue they're generating. So they are being more disciplined on spend. They are being more disciplined on, thinking about what is that next project that they want to take on. And what we see with our customers is they have so many different tools and so many different disparate things that they're trying to deal with that just add tremendous time, cost, energy. And so the more that they can consolidate that down, that makes a big difference.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more with that. And perhaps we could go from where we are now to where we might go ahead in terms of things. So I wonder if we could just spend a few moments just thinking about what you see as like the next frontier. So from identity specifically, and I don't know how much you can hint at that from JumpCloud's perspective, but where do you think the next big innovation jump will be about how we can go next level in terms of support? Or more broadly, kind of themes that you're thinking that they're going to influence this aspect in particular. So I mentioned there earlier about IT-OT convergence as one example, because again, I think the implications of that are around security, identity, and privacy even more so, because again, increased opportunities, but also increased risk in many areas too. So just as one example, that, let alone what we're seeing obviously with hot topic about AI at the moment too. So wondered how you see these things intersecting and what's kind of floating your boat at the moment about where you might want to head next.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think when we focused on identity, one of the things that we thought about was this is sort of an evergreen opportunity.
Yes, definitely.
So if you think back way long time ago, how did people do business? Well, they did business because they knew the person they were doing business with, right?
Indeed.
So take that and move that concept forward, maybe even hundreds of years, decades, whatever you want to call it. Well, you want to make sure that that person you're working with is the right person, right?
Definitely.
And now there's a tool involved or a piece of technology involved. So how does that piece of technology make sure that this is the right person that should be accessing? I think there's a tremendous long-term opportunity as the whole landscape changes. You think about we're going to have all these AI bots out there. How do we know that those AI bots are connected to the individual that they're supposed to be connected to, and they're not doing things that are nefarious? There's a massive opportunity in identity long-term here that I think is going to be an evergreen opportunity. So I'm not looking outside of, that to say, what are all these other opportunities? I think there's so much work to be done here. And that's just one little example of, how do you think about 10, 15 years from now, the identity opportunity? I think it's big.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more as a trajectory. And that's why I kind of wanted to drill into that, really, because I think this is here to stay and then some. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, just this morning, literally just traveling in here, I was involved in an interview, and it was a gentleman quite senior at a particular organization was saying, they're looking at eyeball biometrics. Because they're so concerned about how can you show who you are? Is it really you? And the AI bot was the example used in that. So this identity threshold and had given people that trust and confidence in that. Oh my goodness, we're only going to get bigger and bigger as the sophistication of AI increases.
And the implications are huge, right? So we already know them, right? So if you're able to masquerade as somebody else, you have access to whatever they have access to, and if it's that right person who has access to incredibly sensitive data or, financial accounts or whatever it may be, all of a sudden, you've got a massive amount of risk. So, and I think that that's only, going up in terms of complexity.
Absolutely.
And risk.
Alongside awareness of that risk as well. So you've got a kind of double whammy effect.
Well, now we all know, every consumer knows about the risk of identity theft. And, I think they're probably more conscientious of what they have. And, their credit cards, their bank accounts, their phone, two-factor. All these things are probably more part of our lexicon than they were, 10 years ago.
Even 2 years ago, probably,
probably
as well.
Yeah.
Definitely, with that speed of change. And thinking about that and kind of segueing to some final thoughts maybe on this area. And it's difficult because we could talk about this for there's so many areas to go into, isn't there? But perhaps we could bring this more to, we've talked about skills a little bit, but I'd love to drill a little bit more about supporting people. So we've talked a lot about the technology, and we've obviously gone into people factors as well. But let's narrow down on that a little bit more, because I've loved what I've seen and learned about in terms of what you do at JumpCloud in terms of supporting community, the education outreach in particular. Love that. And we both do a lot in terms of running non-for-profits and startups and stuff. So perhaps we could just spend a little bit of time on that, because I mentioned before I have a non-for-profit series that's very much about visibility of role models, because I think that matters so much. So we interview people kind of from age 7 to 97, that kind of thing, literally kind of the most diverse backgrounds you could have. So it's all about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and kind of sharing a nugget of experience that might give someone the confidence to say, do you know what, I could go for that. I can do that. And there's someone that relates and feels and looks a bit like me, or has had an experience to me, and just to kind of build that confidence up. So perhaps we could share between us some kind of nuggets of advice, or some top tips, or things to look forward to around
maybe
tech.
I'll just take one angle of it.
Go for it.
And one angle may be just, we're a global business.
Definitely.
Right. So, we have about half of our revenue comes outside of the US. We're a US based company, if you will, but now we're worldwide. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we've done is we've also shifted our employee base to be worldwide too. We want to be in the communities that we're servicing. There are massive opportunities in, all kinds of different parts of the world that we're enabling. And so, when we talk about all of those DEI aspects, right, I think one of the ones that's lost is worldwide, global, right?
Very true.
Let's enable, let's be closer to our customers. Let's work with them in their language, in their culture, in their homeland, if you will, and see how we can help them. So I think that's pretty exciting for me.
Definitely.
And I've been traveling all around the world, meeting with our team, meeting with partners, meeting with customers. And it's wonderful to experience all these different cultures and locations. So I think that's a missed maybe part of what we talk about when we talk about DEI.
Definitely. I love that. It's kind of meeting you where you are, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We talk about that in tech in terms of certain channels and things, but actually in terms of inclusion, it's incredibly important, because again, you can't assume that you think something might work really well in a particular context, but unless you're there and you're having those conversations with the people it directly affects, you can't make those assumptions. It could be misplaced in a very good way, but it could be misplaced.
And now you understand what's important to them.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And what's important to them might be a little bit different than what's important to a different location.
Definitely.
And so understanding that, helping them, supporting them is really important. So
100%.
I'm super excited about our work in, being a global company.
That's fantastic. And then kind of drilling into that a little bit more, I'm going to do a skills question, if I may.
Sure.
If you had to pick, say, one skill that you thought was either maybe underexplored, or you would be looking at that more, whichever way you'd like to take it, what would it be and why? And I'll put a vote in for curiosity on that one.
Absolutely.
And so
I'll go just maybe a little adjacent to curiosity,
definitely.
which is what we talked about before, which is having that desire to learn and grow.
Yep.
So, I think people talk about that a lot.
Yes.
And it comes up. I'm not sure how much we really emphasize that.
True.
And going back to your question a little bit about, giving people opportunities, right? A person who is really leaning in and wants to learn and grow, that's a pretty amazing person to have on your team.
Absolutely.
Right. And if you've got a lot of young folks coming up in the industry who are interested in learning and growing, let's put them on your team. Right.
Definitely,
and they'll probably make a pretty big impact.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I think to me, that's one of the ones that I might spend a little bit more time on.
Yes.
And I know at JumpCloud, we do spend a lot of time on that.
That's lovely. And I heard a lovely example of that as well, which was kind of like intergenerational learning. So you're bringing in like a member of the team. I think they were looking at her retiring relatively soon, but instead of that, kind of staying on for an extra 2 years, it was almost like reverse mentoring and coming together. I think things like that are incredibly powerful as well, because using all that experience and bringing together, I just think intergenerational is fantastic. I think that in so many ways it works really, really well.
Well, I mean, just any team that's going to be really successful is going to have a mix,
absolutely,
right? And it's going to have diversity,
definitely,
diversity of maybe generations, as you called it,
diversity
of experience, diversity of thought, hopefully diversity of backgrounds, cultures, all those things, right? If you can pull that together, I mean, that's why, for us, we believe having a global company really matters.
Definitely.
If we were servicing all of our customers only being a US based company, we would have a very narrow mindset.
Absolutely.
And I think by being in all these different countries that we're in and working with people from all kinds of different backgrounds and cultures,
brilliant.
I think that makes our company better. I think
Definitely.
it makes our product better.
Absolutely.
I think it makes our team better.
Makes eminent sense. I think that being where you are really, really matters. But not just that proximity as well, it's that openness to learn, to be actively listening.
Yeah.
And again, when you've got that global presence, you do have different country contexts, you do have the differences. And again, that innovation, that can spur innovation, can't it? When you see differences, you can, try this here. Again, it gets that diversity of thought going, which I think is massively important as well.
One of the values at JumpCloud is 1% better every day.
Yes, I love that. That's very good.
I mean, that speaks to exactly what you're talking about, continuous learning, continuous growth, and how do we continue to just improve and improve.
Absolutely. So, I love that. It brings me to a final analogy around this alongside the tech point of view. I love what you said, that 1% every day, because again, I think that helps people when there's so much change going on. And sometimes, I mean, you put on the news, don't you? And you think, my gosh, sometimes you want to just turn it off because it just seems so overwhelming. If you can break it down and make it more incremental, step by step, those milestones, things become far more manageable there. And you see that improvement, you get more buy-in, and it builds and builds and builds. And as I like to call it, it's like a contagion of positive change, which is the tagline to Tech for Good book that I've got coming out soon for charity. And it gives me my final segue. Can we talk about your book as well?
Sure, of course.
So let's do that as a final one. And you kindly gave me a copy of this earlier as well. So I'm going to bring this out because it is very valid to our conversation. So Startup Playbook. So for the camera there as well. And I've already read this as part of some mentoring work. And you've very kindly signed it. So thank you. I really, really do appreciate that. That means a lot to me. But if you were going to describe this in a few sentences, A, why you did it, but B, how you're using it, or a story of someone who may have read this and had an impact. Because again, with the 365 series, frankly, with the podcast, a lot of this storytelling, it's great when you can see that impact, and it might just help someone think, do you know what, I'm going to go for that, or I'm going to apply for that accelerator program. Because again, I think when you see visibility of that, it just gives you that confidence to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wrote the book very simplistically. We had so many people, my co-founder, co-author and I, Will Herman, who's actually a board member at JumpCloud too.
Oh, amazing.
He and I decided to write this book because we get so many people coming to us and asking us questions.
Of course.
And so we said well, all these questions that we get asked, why don't we put them into a book?
Yes.
And then if they can read that book, then we can have the next level of conversation.
Love it.
So the idea was, to that aspiring entrepreneur, go read this and you'll get a taste of what it's like. Or even somebody that's looking to join a startup, it might give them a sense of what it's really like. And then have the next part of the conversation, because this is just a primer.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
It's the foundation, right? But there's so much more conversation to be had. And unfortunately, if you spend so much time on the foundation, you never get to that higher order conversation.
That's very, very true.
And so hopefully this book will help people get to that higher order conversation much quicker.
I love that. And I also think, particularly over the last few years when, there's been a period of time where people haven't been able to go to an accelerator in person, and we've had, more remote development, remote onboarding, etc. I think some of the experiences you share there as well are really helpful in terms of closing that particular gap as well. So whether you're someone looking to join a startup or start one, or someone like mentoring and giving advice, I think there's a lot of nuggets in there that help close that gap too, and help make it really real and visible, and share those stories. So I think it's such a great space.
And hopefully it gives people just a little bit of insight into what's going on in a founder's mind.
Exactly.
And, how are they thinking about the problems that they're facing?
100%.
And so whether you're a mentor, whether you're an investor, whether you're joining a startup or thinking about joining a startup, or if you're an entrepreneur, hopefully it just gives you a window into what it's like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it really does set the scene, gives some nice flavour. And again, I think it just helps you to think of things you may not have thought of before they ever happen. And that's the biggest learning you can have. When people share, mistakes and things, it's not a mistake, it's a learning lesson, isn't it? And when you openly share things like that, some lovely stories there, I think that people can think, well, actually, now I know about that, I won't do that now, or ask for help here, etc. as well. So some lovely stories like that in there.
Well, our hope was
brilliant.
That folks won't make the mistakes we made. They make new mistakes, right? And then hopefully we'll talk
about those.
And we'll share those, and we won't then make those, right?
Exactly.
And that's sort of the community aspect of entrepreneurship. And
really
entrepreneurship is absolutely a community, just like the IT world is a very tight community.
It is.
So, and the more people can interact and learn together, then it sort of raises the bar for everybody.
Absolutely. And I know I said this just now, but this will be my final point. But you mentioned community there. But my gosh, isn't that the other biggest thing that's happened in terms of kind of changes, like the rise of the ecosystem? We've seen better collaboration, more co-creation. I think COVID has a really positive impact there. It kind of catalyzed that. Things like the HPC consortium for healthcare. organizations maybe traditionally would have competed, they've come together for that common aim. And I think we can apply that kind of mindset to other challenges too. But you mentioned there about community and startups. Again, maybe ecosystem and enterprise. How are you kind of working in that environment too? In the news with Google recently as well, great example of the power of partnership. Maybe that could be our final thing, the power of coming together. Because again, with identity and security, that is one of the biggest things we can do as well in terms of kind of beating the bad actors, so to speak. So power of the ecosystem.
Absolutely. The Google partnership we have, which is a very significant partnership for both of us, is a great example of, both of us want to give those organizations the power of choice.
Indeed.
Use the technology that's best for you. Google has an amazing cloud productivity and collaboration platform. JumpCloud has an amazing identity and device management platform. How can those things come together to enable organizations to have better choice, better security, be able to work in all kinds of different ways? And so that's a really powerful combination.
Definitely.
But ultimately, look, the community is really strong in IT world. They talk, they're communicating, they're sharing best practices, they're sharing what's working, not working, how can they adjust, adapt, all that, which is great for everybody.
Absolutely. Go further, faster by coming together, isn't it? It really is a truism, that one, definitely. Well, Raj, I know we have to wrap this up, but I think we're going to have to come back for more. I think that's what we're going to have to do. This has been a brilliant deep dive. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for taking time. And beyond your amazing role at JumpCloud and all the work you're doing there, thanks also for the work you do beyond that too as part of the community.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us too. More coming for us from Tomorrow's Tech Today very soon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Tomorrow's Tech Today. If you enjoy what we're doing, please subscribe to us and leave a review. It really means a lot. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram and see more behind the scenes video footage on YouTube. Thanks for listening.